Hello and welcome to Highway. This is Settle Station in the Yorkshire Dales. We're about to go on a railway journey and what is probably the most scenic mainline route in all of England. So all aboard for the Settle and Carlisle Express. This route is held in special affection by lovers of railways and the great outdoors. But this is the line built on a grand scale in a wild and romantic setting. Its construction was a masterpiece of Victorian civil engineering. The 72-mile line climbing through the breathtaking Yorkshire Dales, over the Pennines and down the beautiful Eden Valley in an almost bewildering succession of bold viaducts and tunnels. I'm sure I'd have to travel a long way to find someone who knows as much about this railway as Bill Mitchell. Bill, you edited the Cumbria and the Dalesman magazines for many years, and you've written a lot about the Settle to Carlisle Railway. What's its special appeal for you?
Oh, it's the appeal of a railway through some of the wildest country in Britain. This was a case where the Midland Company set off to do a finely engineered route, and if they came to a hill, they didn't go round it, they went straight through it. If they came to a valley, they built an enormous viaduct. In fact, a man came up to the surveyors and said, "What are you doing, lads?" And they said, "We're going to build a railway." They said, "Nay, you'll have to build it on stilts." And he wasn't far wrong, you know, because some of these viaducts are tremendous size. Yeah. And it's that wonderful feeling of going across a wilderness. We come up the Ribble Valley, actually, with Ingleborough on one side, Pennygent on the other, Ribble Head Viaduct. 24 arches, and in fact in railway building days 2,000 people lived on the moor around there in a whole series of little shanty towns which were constructed by the contractor, and they had outlandish names. Salt Lake City, Sebastopol, Inkerman, possibly named by people who'd worked on the great railway out in the Crimean War, and then Jericho, and from Jericho you actually went up to the shanty town called Jerusalem.
What's the train we're on at the moment?
This is a train, the Pennine Limited, which is being hauled by Sir Nigel Gresley. And that's one of those lovely streamlined jobs. It's the wrong colour, really, you know. I mean, there were red trains of the old Midland days. This happens to be a blue. It's an ex-LNER. But it's wonderful, and you could almost rouse the dead when you play this wonderful chime whistle on Sir Nigel Gresley. You know, anybody who hears it, any railway fanatic, will in fact break down and sob at the very sound.
As a Methodist local preacher, you're the man to answer this question. What about the religious aspects of the building of the railway?
Well, actually, one tends to think of everyone as being lawless in the shanty towns, but in fact, of course, as society today, 85–90% of the people were decent, law-abiding people. I mean, no community holds together if everybody's bad. And, of course, the Midland Company were anxious to placate anyone locally who was objecting to the coming of the line, and also they didn't want too many people, you know, who were murdered, injured, and so they got in touch with the Bradford City Mission, and together they appointed 1 or 2 railway missionaries, and the one appointed for Ribble Head was called James Tiplady. In fact, James Tiplady presided over a mission hall. And it was a wonderful place, you know, all the religious homilies around, and there was a stage, and they had some gospel singers, and they had a harmonium, which somebody described as an ill wind which nobody blows any good. And meanwhile, it was left to the Methodist local preachers to go out to the wilder shanties. But the interesting survival from the days of the Settle Carlisle was that when it was all over, the local people said, "Do you mind if we use the waiting room of Ribble Head Station for services?" And the Midland Company said certainly. And so when I first knew the line, I used to go into the waiting room, and there in one corner was a harmonium. And the vicar of Ingleton used to come up once a month and take a service.
Thanks very much for talking to us, Bill. Very interesting. I must say it's easy to enjoy the scenery when you're sitting in a train. Just look at this view down into Dent Dale. We're 600 feet above the valley at this point, but must still keep climbing for some miles before we reach the summit at Aysgate. Dent Station is the highest mainline station in England. It's also the first to get blocked by snow. A good stopping-off point when visiting the Dales National Park is Dent Village itself. It's a few miles away from the station, attractively situated further up the valley. The church in the centre of the village has an impressive east window, and I'm sure you'll be surprised by the curving little streets which are cobbled and have no pavements. We're in Garsdale now. The scenery looks even wilder. And this must be the most sparsely populated stretch of the line. A few farms and cottages, and very little else. A few miles further, and we meet the end of Wensleydale, one of the best-known Yorkshire dales. In the rural communities linked by this railway, in the towns and villages and isolated hamlets, Christian witness has always been strong, perhaps never more so than today. There's a firm Methodist and Quaker influence, carrying on the tradition of those early travelling missionaries who ministered to the builders of the line. Once past the summit at Aysgill, it's down over Malastang Common into another valley, the beautiful Vale of Eden. From here you can see the Crossfell range of the Pennines for the first time. That's what I like about this line. The views change so quickly, with the tunnels, cuttings and viaducts just adding to its charm. This is Appleby, the old county town of Westmoreland. So let's leave our train and take a closer look. Bishop Eric Tracy, railway photographer, pastor to railwaymen, lover of life and railways. He maintained that the three chief wonders of northern England were York Minster, Hadrian's Wall and the Settle and Carlisle Railway, not necessarily in that order.